Hey, everybody, we're live. Hey now, everybody. All right, let me tweet it out. Let me get Paul on. Hey, Paul, hold on. You're here. You're muted again. I don't know why. Hi, Paul.
Hey.
Sorry. I had you
That's right.
muted. I did not see you on this.
It's fine.
So I have a little man bun on for you because I heard you and Leo talking about it a few minutes ago.
Wow.
So I decided I'm going to redo my hair into a little bun for you. Look at that. Look at this. All for you. Because I know how much you
What's
love the
that?
hairstyle. It's all for you.
Oh.
All right, let me center my shot. We'll do a quick show. I know you just did an hour with Leo, so. There we go. All right, we got an ad. Thank God. Molecule. There we go. All right, let me open up Tharot.com, my cheat sheet for the show. Hey, chat room. Hey, everybody. Got to retweet that we're live. Let me go. Twitter.
Hmm.
Let me just do one more retweet here. La 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 la. How are you, Paul? Good?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. How
Did
you
you
doing?
see Tyson is fighting Roy Jones Jr.
Unfortunately, I did see that.
in an exhibition round, 8-round exhibition match? Are they fighting in Saudi Arabia? That's what I had heard a while ago that they were working on a
I
Tyson
don't know.
fight. No, take place in California, September 12th. Interesting. Well, they're really banking on this coronavirus going away, huh? By September
Hmm.
12th.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
What
All
is
right.
happening here?
Okay, let me get the rod up. Any updates? Xbox Game Showcase. All right. Okay,
A
Paul.
lot of games.
I'm good to start. How about you?
Sure.
You ready? Let's do this. All right. All right, boys and girls. All right, chat room. Let's get this going. In 3, 2, and 1. This episode of What the Tech is brought to you by Molecule. Molecule is reimagining the future of clean air, starting with the air purifier. For 10% off your first air purifier, visit molecule.com. That's MOLEKULE.com and enter the promo code Andrew10 at checkout.
What's up, Ted?
Everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Sharon. Of course, I'm joined by Mr. Paul Tharot. How you doing, Paul? Oh,
Am I right?
Yep, there you are. There you
Sorry.
are. I had you muted.
Oh, well.
All right, let me try that again. How you doing, Paul?
I'm pretty good.
Okay, thank you.
How are you?
I tend to mute you now constantly. I have no
Yeah.
idea why. It automatically defaults you to being muted.
Yeah.
So
Tharot's talking. Mute it.
I blame the computer, not me.
It's okay. It's
You
okay.
just wrapped up. You were on Twitch just now, about 5 minutes ago. You were doing a show with Leo about the Microsoft Xbox Games Showcase that went on at noon East here. It's 1:30 p.m. East. So I thought this would be a perfect time to cover this with you. A lot of games. You know what was my favorite? Apparently, they're doing a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids game.
Yeah.
It looked like it,
I
right?
thought that looked pretty good. Yeah.
It looked pretty good. I honestly thought it was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah. Like a literal. Yeah.
I was waiting for Rick Moranis to show up, but he never did.
Right. Right.
And then Tinkerbell died. So
Tinkerbell, which I called, by the way. I thought that was
which he
good.
did. Yeah. We're going to talk about all that and obviously and a whole lot more stuff. I did want to wear my hair in a man bun because I heard Paul and Leo talking about some guy's man bun, and I thought that you guys were talking about me, so I went and I redid my hair for you today.
Sure. Well, like I said of that guy, that's not the pandemic's fault. That's a choice.
That's hairstyle is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you want to begin with this? Because there were a couple interesting things. This essentially took the place of what they would have announced at E3, correct?
That's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah. So let's run down this. Where do you want to begin?
I mean, well, I just as a quick overview, very similar to what Sony did recently for the PlayStation 5. Mostly first-party games, although not exclusively. You know, it was a Sega game in there and some other things. It was only an hour long and kind of not even really an hour. And, how many games did they announce?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
10,
6,
15?
7, 8. Oh, yeah. I forgot. They had the quick ones. But their big ones were like 5 games, right? That they spent a lot of more time on.
Yeah.
It was
and, just so the other thing people should know is, Microsoft obviously handles exclusives very differently than Sony does, right? So Sony is very big on games that will only work on a certain version of the PlayStation console. Microsoft puts games across Xbox, or at least allows them to become across Xbox. So most of Microsoft's games are some console, Xbox One and or Xbox Series X, and often on PC as well, Windows PC. So it's, their games are exclusive to Xbox, which is a platform which is not just one console.
Yeah.
Which some people don't like, for some reason.
Why is that?
Because people have you get stuck in a rut of what things, have to be. And this is not the way, like I said, that Sony handles exclusives. So people say, well, it's not exclusive if it runs on, 2 different versions of a console and also on, PC. And to me, that's nonsense. I mean, as a gamer, and by the way, soon this will expand out to xCloud or whatever they're going to call that, meaning you'll be able to play these games remotely, many of these games remotely on mobile devices, right? So as a gamer, I think I prefer that. That's what I want. You want to be able to play it anywhere.
Also, you could play with more people. Also, that plays a big part in it. One thing that I'll give you a great example. This is on a much smaller scale, right? May not even be an equivalent comparison, but here's a great example. I have a Nintendo Switch because I absolutely love the freaking console. I like playing my old games. I like playing like the old Capcom beat 'em ups and stuff, and it's all on there. So I don't consider myself a hardcore gamer. I'm more of a casual gamer, and it works for me. And for the hour or 2 that I'm spending on this thing, it brings me happiness, and that's what matters. But their online play is terrible because nobody's playing online.
Yeah.
Especially a lot of their not indie. Actually, yes, a lot of their indie developed games. Nobody's playing online because it's such a narrow niche of users that are playing. First of all, the Switch and using Switch online, and then playing these indie games online. So virtually, you can't find anybody. And even if it's a retro title that they've re-released for multiplayer use online, nobody's playing it because it's such a small platform. There's no cross platform multiplayer. So, I welcome that, especially on the PC side, because you're going to see a lot of this on the PC side, where it's going to be cross-platform between the Xbox and PC.
By the way, the other thing I think that's kind of a big deal that's related to that is like cooperative single-player games, which are technically multiple. Like you go through a single-player campaign. It's a lot of the Xbox games they showed today seem like they were like that kind of thing, post-apocalyptic or a mystery of some kind. People revisiting the past. It's the type of thing you could play with your, spouse or siblings or friends. I kind of like that aspect, the social aspect of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you want to start off with the big one? I guess it's Halo, right? Halo Infinity. Infinite.
Yeah, and it's good and bad news, right? So if you're a a fan of Halo, it is very obviously Halo, and I think that's, like I said, good and bad. I mean, it's, here we are 20 years later, basically, and we're revisiting this world. It looks like there's a new kind of bad guy, because in many ways the previous storyline has kind of played out. Yeah, I mean but we still see the Covenant, we still see the Warthog, we still see the Master Chief, obviously. A couple very basic capabilities. There was a grappling hook kind of thing, which to me looks like something out of one of the more recent Call of Duty games, and then a capability to kind of grab something with it and pull it toward you, which is very much like something you see in Half-Life 2.
Yeah,
that kind of energy gun, or in Portal.
Also, I'm seeing a little bit of the elements of Fortnite in here also now.
Yeah.
But
the look of it, the sounds, the music, everything obviously is classic, Halo. So we'll see. I mean, for sure, the first 3 Halo games in particular for me were just iconic. These are games, all 3 of them, I played multiple times on single player, and you just kind of don't do that anymore. Or I don't, typically.
On campaign mode, you mean?
Sorry, and single player. Yep.
Yeah, I see, and I play single player mostly because I suck at these games. I suck at Halo. I suck at Call of Duty. I suck at Counter-Strike. It just, my brain doesn't function to you play these games the way that some people do. So the only way I could enjoy it is by playing the campaign mode, because it's slow enough for me to kind of pick it up.
Well, there will be, right? So Halo obviously will have the single player campaign, and it looked like a bunch of the games were kind of single player experiences that they showed off today. So I think it's, something, I don't know if it's something for everybody, but something for lots of different kinds of people for sure. Lots of stuff.
So that was a big one. If you guys are interested in this after the show, they have released an 8-minute video of gameplay that's on the series, on the Xbox Series X, and it's in 60 frames per second. They're showing the best of this. They're doing, I think right now it's 4K at 60. They're showing this game. It looks great.
Yeah.
The gameplay looks smooth. It looks phenomenal. I mean, exactly what you would imagine with the next generation Xbox console. So this is a big thing, but you're right. I don't know how much clout the Halo franchise still has compared to everything else happening.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and my own Call of Duty experience came about because we got kind of, as a group, there was a group of guys playing these games, got tired of Halo. Like after 3 Halos, it was kind of the same thing for many years, and we turned at that time to Call of Duty, and now I've moved. I don't really play with those guys anymore, but we all still play Call of Duty. But Microsoft has other big franchises, and I would say once you get past Halo, they were kind of shooting 500 on the big franchises, because 2 of them, like Fable. What was the other one? Fable and Forza they don't have an actual game coming out this year, right? So what they did instead was show a quick preview of a coming Forza game and a coming Fable game that will come, next year probably, or maybe even after that, who knows? And then when you think about their other 2 big franchises, basically it's Minecraft and Gears of War. Those guys didn't get mentions at all.
Why is that?
I don't know. I mean, one of the reasons is they don't have a game for this year, right? So we're not going to see a Gears 6 or whatever. We're not going to see a new version of Minecraft this year. Yeah. They probably were just too early, for them to announce something. Obviously, when you think about a console launch, even though Microsoft does exclusives differently, they're and will spread the games out over the different platforms. You do want to support a console with a wave of games, not just when you launch the console, but next year, the year after that. And so I'm sure some of these titles, they want to have some blockbuster slotted in for each holiday season for the next couple of years. So I would imagine, Fable, Forza maybe will be next year. And then,
by the way, it looks beautiful. Forza looks beautiful. Fable looks beautiful. They've done a good job at making you realize that this is a next generation console, and generally the first set of games that come out for the next gen console, there isn't that much of a graphical difference, but I'm noticing a big difference in what they displayed, what they showed.
It was hard for me, watching it on the stream. I wasn't getting the full quality, so I mean, I
Watch the
The
4K
games,
clips.
yeah, yeah. I'll have to. Yeah, I mean, I can't do this PC I'm on is what I used is not even 4K, so I'll have to figure that out. But yeah, I mean, but that's it. I mean, the stuff I saw, there are games that are coming that are kind of being enhanced, like the latest Ori game is being enhanced. The Destiny is coming, or Destiny 2, I guess, is coming to
Did they say
Game Pass
that
and being
game,
enhanced.
the Ori game, is 120 frames per second?
I think what they said was it was 144 maybe, or 140 hertz. And so this raises an interesting question, because if you're a gamer, you can get gaming laptops, you can buy gaming displays that run at faster than 60 hertz or whatever, right? And so for a while, like 120, I think 140, I can't remember if it's 144.
It's 120 frames per second.
Oh, they actually did say that. Okay.
And 120 hertz.
120 hertz. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's
hertz, 120 frames per second.
Okay, so that's 120 makes sense. It's double the 60. So that's interesting. Now I just don't remember if they said this. I'm not really sure, but does Xbox Series X support higher refresh rates than like Xbox One X does today?
That's a great question.
I don't know. It probably does, right? It's a 4K 60 frame per second deal. I bet it probably does. But the other part of this is that game. I think that game was also going to be on the PC, or is on the PC, and theoretically.
It's going to be PC also.
Yeah, so maybe that higher refresh rate is something you would typically see or would see on the PC.
Okay, this is another beautiful game. I'm looking at the gameplay for this.
Which one?
The Ori game.
Yeah, the Ori games they're gorgeous. They're always gorgeous. Yeah.
Very nice job. Very interested in this. I'm definitely getting this generation console because for me, even with the current gen Xbox, I was very late to the 4K game. I held off for a number of reasons, not because I was a 4K denier, as somebody in our comment section on YouTube
4K denier
accused me of being a 4K denier last year. I mean, obviously,
what does that even mean?
Hysterical. That I've denied the. I guess I've denied the importance of 4K because I think on a show I think we made a joke in December that I was talking about a guy that made a video on YouTube talking about how nobody needs 4K. You can't see 4K. 4K is not something that you could see the difference of. And his thing was based on all the wrong facts. Which I found funny that people were agreeing with him. But essentially he was saying that because of the way, he had a point. Because of the way that most people set up their TVs, they're buying TVs that are way too large for the room, and their seating is way too close to the TV. So they're not able to see the true, I guess, clarity of 4K because they're either too close to the TV, so you see more pixels, or the TV's too big for the room. Everybody's going for a 65-inch, 70-inch TV now, but their rooms are tiny. They got a 7x10 room, so it doesn't really, it doesn't even work in that traditional way because you're too close. So I think we made the joke about that, and somebody accused me of being a 4K denier, which was hysterical. But these look great, and for me, I held off on 4K for a number of reasons. I wanted there to be some sort of standardization, especially with HDR and what they're doing, and now we've reached that point where things are getting standardized, and this is the future. It's staying here. Games are now being in 4K. TV shows are now produced in 4K. Most movies are now released in 4K. I mean, I assume every single movie is released in 4K. So there really isn't an argument to wait anymore. Do you think Xbox will benefit from this? Because with the last generation, remember, younger demo that plays games, right? Compared to, it's not the 50 plus, Paul. You're an exception to this.
I feel exceptional. Thank you.
You are. I mean, me too. Listen, I'm 36, so I'm still playing these games. But generally, it's catered to a younger demo. I think a lot of people have now jumped into the 4K world. So there's an argument to be had that this may be a very successful launch for the Xbox compared to previous years. Obviously, it's always Xbox, Microsoft has success with this for the last 20 years almost. But do you think it's going to be a bigger deal now because people actually have the displays to play these at the highest resolution?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, obviously the pandemic is kind of the wild card here. Microsoft just announced their most recent quarterly and actually their annual earnings yesterday, and Xbox gaming and services were up dramatically year over year, but because of COVID, right? So will the pandemic cause people to keep using the hardware they already have?
Oh, that's a great question.
Because it is some uncertainty, and maybe spending $500 ish or whatever the price of this thing's going to be is kind of a tough sell. I don't know. I mean, I think there's always some audience for this for the first year for a new console. I just don't know how all these factors impact things. But you're right. I mean, 4K displays are mainstream now. So
listen, the success of the PlayStation 3, the success of the PlayStation 3 on a mainstream level had everything to do with the fact that it was a Blu-ray player. You know, and you think about it, and that's the least of the importance when it comes to gameplay. But for many people, that justify them to spend the money that they did because it was a piece of technology
and that would have been,
that they needed.
by the way, that would have been like a 1080,
a 1080 4K
Blu-ray too.
Blu-ray,
you got to remember how long ago that was. But yeah, right. I mean, and people forget this. You know, DVDs are 480p. They're not even 720. Like, they're horrifically low quality. Compared to what we have today. So yeah, even going 1080, and then of course 4K on video is a big deal. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'm excited for this stuff personally, but I'm an Xbox guy. I mean, whatever. But
it's rare that you
I'm
hear
curious,
that discussion when it comes to PC gaming, right? You don't really hear that discussion. People saying like, "Well, I need to upgrade my display in order to play this game."
Well, I mean, but people do upgrade. People do upgrade their PCs and their displays, right? I mean, it's that's one of the nice things about PC gaming. You can throw a new graphics card in and
get a whole different experience.
Upgrade the display. Yep, and play the same games, but they're all going to look better, et cetera. That's good. But that's the promise of the Xbox too. I mean, all your games are going to play basically, and you bring everything forward. And the promise for the new generation is you put a game that was on Xbox One previously, and even if the developer didn't do anything, you're going to have a better experience. It's going to load better. It's going to look better. And if they do some work, it could be dramatically better, and that was part of the announcement today. I mentioned like Gears of War. They didn't announce a new game, but Gears 5, which is the current version of Gears, is going to get a visual update for Xbox One Series X. So, people who play those games, and there are others too, like Ori was one of them. I think Gears Tactics is one. I don't remember the complete list, but that is the promise. That's one of, is it enough to spend hundreds of dollars on something to get what might be a slightly better visual experience? It depends on who you are and what you're doing. And
will.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think so. We do have a lot to talk about, obviously, but before we continue, I want to thank our great sponsor and perfect timing for this, considering I just changed all my filters, and that's Molecule. Molecule technology has been personally effective and verified by science. One of the most important parts of this. Also, it's been tested by real people. I'm one of those people that uses my Molecule air purifier every single day. I have it in my living room. I sometimes even move it to different rooms if I feel that the quality of the air has been affected, if it's too dusty, we're doing work in the house. I'm constantly living in a construction site at this point. They use something called Pico technology, and what it's able to do, it's able to capture things on the molecule level, on a very small level. So things that your normal standard HEPA filter wouldn't catch, like viruses and bacteria in the air, mold in the air, a Pico filter will. And that's the great thing about this. It catches all the tiny particles. It destroys these particles, leaving behind clean air. It's replacing a nearly a century-old technology with the HEPA filter that started, I believe, in the 1940s. So, back in the 40s, they weren't thinking about these things. And now we have a technology that actually works. It's able to grab things, mold, viruses, bacteria, volatile organic chemicals that slip right through a standard HEPA filter. They're able to do this with Molecule, and they have a great offer for our audience. And I definitely recommend checking this out. If you go to molecule.com, that's molekule.com, and use the promo code Andrew10, you get 10% off your first purchase. And they have different sizes now. They got the smaller Molecule, the Molecule Mini, which is great for smaller rooms, offices, or the regular Molecule, which that's the one I have. It's bigger, but it's able to do much larger in square footage for the room. I know a number of people that have this. If you have a partner that's a smoker, If you have someone that has terrible environmental allergies like me, I probably have one of the worst environmental allergies when it comes to surviving, especially in the spring. Shockingly, this year, I was not really affected. You know why, Paul? Because we didn't leave our houses. And I had my molecule running this entire time, so I wasn't nearly as affected. The other thing I want to bring up is that a lot of malls over the next, I guess, couple months, you're going to start hearing about them changing their air filtration systems and their air conditioning filtration systems. Something that they're all starting to implement is Pico technology that's able to capture viruses and bacteria that's in the air and volatile organic compounds that are in the air that normal traditional air conditioning units and air purification units can't do. This is something very important, especially when it comes to your health and maintaining, healthy breathing air. Something that you'd be shocked if you find out how often these filters are not being changed. They're starting to implement Pico technology. I know a mall here in New York that implemented that in their units. It's not cheap. It's a very expensive upgrade, but it's something that's starting to happen, and you're realizing that this is something that's necessary, especially with the air that we breathe in. And Molecule, kudos to them for getting on this years before it became a big deal. That's molekule.com. Use the offer code Andrew10 and get 10% off your first air purifier purchase. I absolutely love these guys. Listen, we talk about these companies on the show. This is one of them I use every single day. It's right across from me in my office right now in here. So it's easy for me to talk about, and I greatly support them. That's molekule.com, molekule.com. Enter the promo code Andrew10 at checkout. Get 10% off. I want to thank them for supporting the show. Pico technology, Paul. We're in the future. Pico. I want to, what do you think of the Tetris game? That's what I want to ask you before we continue on. I want to talk about ARM, but I want to know what you think of this Tetris game.
Yeah, I mean, I will say it's a good sign that was the weakest thing they showed. Everyone understands Tetris, not a big deal. I'm curious why they even showed it. I felt like the big difference between the Microsoft game showcase they just had and the Sony thing that they did a few weeks ago is that the Xbox stuff trended darker and more adult, and the Sony stuff surprisingly got very far into what I would call Nintendo territory. A lot of kind of kiddie games, little cutesy things. There were a couple things like that in the Microsoft one, but I think of both Sony and Microsoft and their audiences as being more on the hardcore gamer side. But maybe Sony's so popular at this point, maybe they've just hit the mainstream or something. I don't know, but Tetris was a weird choice.
Yeah.
So
they spent some time on that.
Yeah, they spent too much time on that. Yeah.
Because that's what the generation that's watching that event wants to see is Tetris.
Well, I don't. Diversity is fine. I mean, you do want to have something for everybody if possible, and I think I don't know. Yeah, I mean, at this point, like Tetris is a game they would teach you in a beginning programming class how to make it. It just doesn't seem. I don't care how you spruce it up. It's not particularly modern, so obviously it's a multiplayer game now, but whatever, it's fine.
So here's some big news that started rumbling yesterday that people are breaking now. There's a report that ARM is for sale, and NVIDIA seems to be interested. Now, people who don't realize that ARM is owned by SoftBank Group, which is a financial institution in Japan. They own a number of things. Boston Dynamics, Sprint. They have stakes in Uber, GM Cruise. They bought ARM, I believe, in 2016 for, what was it, 30 million, 32 million, 35, 30, I think 32 million.
Right. Yep.
And, from 2016 to now, very different company we're talking about. The value obviously has gone up tremendously.
Yep.
ARM, by the way, SoftBank has been hit pretty hard due to WeWork having issues with their IPO and everything that went on with them, and obviously with Uber and their stock. So it seems like they're looking to sell this to raise money, but whose hands does this fall into? Now, this is the very important question here.
Yep. So confronted by this question, because of course people in my circles say, oh, Microsoft should buy these guys. This could be their reentry into mobile, and it's like, I don't think a company like Apple wouldn't want it anymore. Apple's obviously diverged from ARM; they're doing their own thing, and Qualcomm has said they don't want it; they don't want to buy it. I sort of thought, the company that makes the most sense is Intel. ARM succeeds exactly where Intel fails. And with over 50% of Intel's revenues coming from data centers are prime opportunity for the ARM market to move into there because they're more energy efficient. I thought, this is just an obvious link up.
Yeah.
But that said, NVIDIA is a much smaller company. Their most recent, I just happened to look this up for some other reason. This wasn't about this, but their most recent quarterly report, they made about $3 billion in revenues. Their business for PC gaming, which I think most people would sort of assume is NVIDIA,
Yeah.
is about the same size as their data center business. So actually,
Wow.
NVIDIA is trending toward data centers as well.
Interesting.
NVIDIA would make, or ARM would make a lot of sense for NVIDIA. I just think ARM might be too big for NVIDIA to buy.
Yeah.
I don't know what their cash situation is or whatever.
Number of solutions, options here, right? One would actually be for SoftBank to have an IPO for ARM and have it be its own entity in that sense.
Right.
Because they are gigantic. I mean, this is a big company. We're not talking about,
ARM is, and they're a money generating entity. Like this isn't like we own IP. We're just, milking patents or whatever. They're coming up with new designs and they're licensing that stuff. They're kind of, they're different from an Intel. Intel comes up with designs as well, but they sell them themselves. Yeah. This company ARM makes they design the chipsets, but they don't ever make them themselves. They license the design.
Yeah.
And then chip makers like Qualcomm and Samsung and Apple and many, many others make their own chips based on these referenced designs, for lack of a better term.
So who makes sense, other than them becoming their own thing and becoming public and all that? But if we're going to talk about the hypothetical that somebody's purchasing them, right? There's a number of obstacles here. One, it's not just purchasing this; it's also antitrust issues that could come into play. For a company like Intel,
you would have to pledge to continue licensing along the same plans that ARM has to. Although, by the way, ARM, one of the news stories that came out fairly recently, aside from this, was that ARM is apparently raising prices dramatically on some of their designs for certain markets, and that could be a problem for the companies.
Why is that? Because they feel that they're at the point of competition as far as mainstream chipsets go?
I don't know why exactly. It is possible that they've kind of, so much of the world is running on ARM now, ARM-based designs. They might feel like they're not making enough money, basically, given how popular that stuff is. But they're, 50, you think this thing must be worth like $50 billion or something. I mean,
I think they bought it for what, $32 billion, right?
Yeah. So, but now it's probably worth, 50, right? So how do you, how do you buy something like that? Like who would want that business and could afford it, right? There aren't that many companies.
Intel?
Yeah, well, Intel. Yeah, Intel was the one I had come up with. Huawei, by the way, would be an interesting choice. Huawei is one of those licensees. They make they have a subsidiary called Hisense that makes Kirin processors, which are roughly analogous to whatever Qualcomm's doing. Huawei's a giant company. They've lots of problems. Like they would probably be blocked because of antitrust. Except that ARM is not an American company.
ARM is not an American company, but
ARM was British. They're run by a Japanese company. Yeah. So, I mean, I suppose that would be a possibility. That would incense lots of people. But
so, how about AMD? I mean, would it make sense for them?
Yeah, it would make sense. But they're like NVIDIA. I just don't think they're cash rich enough to do that. But AMD, like Intel, should be looking at this architecture and, if not licensing it outright, then at least working on designs that mimic what ARM is doing with the big little core design. Intel's already doing that, by the way. So I don't know if AMD is working on that. I'm pretty sure they don't have any chips in the world that are like that. But that's where the world's going. Yeah. I mean, for comparison reasons,
this is something that you got to look at. The expected revenue for Intel for 2020 was around $73 billion. I don't know if that's still going to be the case, obviously, with everything happening. They generated, I think they had a record 33 billion cash from operations in 2019. And I
Yeah.
think 17 billion in cash flow. AMD nowhere near that. I believe they had a revenue of 6 billion only.
Yeah, I mean that's tiny. Even Nvidia is bigger than that.
Yeah. Very interesting. I mean,
Yep.
Apple really makes sense, but obviously the rumors are that they are not interested
Apple's-
in this purchase.
I don't even need them to say that to know that they're not interested, because Apple would never want to license designs.
No,
And plus,
never.
think about the antitrust issues there. Like, Apple has made their own chips, which they assert are dramatically better than any other ARM chips. But we'll do these reference designs, these pieces of crap that we'll license to everyone. You can have the crap, and we'll keep doing our own thing. There's no way. That would never make sense.
Broadcom, that's another one possibly.
Oh, Broadcom, jeez. Yeah, Broadcom.
They've been trying to buy Qualcomm.
That's what I was trying to remember who was buying who. I was going to say they either were trying to buy Qualcomm or vice versa. Yeah, it's probably was Broadcom.
Bob Rowan, our
Maybe.
chat room. AMD has a market cap of 64 billion. Nvidia has 240 plus billion.
Oh,
So
yeah, that's way out of
AMD
league.
is tiny. Yeah. Yeah. So very interesting. I'm curious to see who this ends up in. It's quite possible a financial institution might come in and grab it. Listen, Deutsche Bank's having some problems. Maybe they should buy it.
Right.
Just to avoid the whole scandal thing, with the money laundering allegedly. They could just jump into this.
It's almost too big. Yeah, it's a problem. It really limits what can happen,
Yeah, this is a big thing, because depending on whose hands this company ends up in, you could see a shift in the way that the company is licensing, and that would be, that's detrimental to technology and how the advance of ARM in the last couple of years really had to do with their licensing and how they were licensing their chipsets, essentially, right?
Yeah, and geez, you get into a weird area here, because their designs are so essential for so many different products. Like it almost needs, it needs protection almost. It's just hard to understand what can happen to this business. I don't know what to say. I'm just, we'll see what happens. By the way, one of the more likely outcomes is that nothing happens. That SoftBank just keeps them.
Yeah. If I'm going to take a bet, I'm going to say the SoftBank is not going to sell this and they'll spin it off.
Yeah, it will get rid of a bunch of other things to try to recover from the downtimes it's having right now. But ARM is like money in the bank. I would hold on to it. But.
Listen, I think for a lot of people, I get wind of a lot of these like potential sales that never happen. A lot of people need to realize a lot of these companies are always up for sale, right? If somebody comes up with a astronomical price tag and they're willing to pay for it, somebody's willing to pay for it, there's a good chance that they would sell. All these companies are potential to be sold. So it could just be the company's stance that, listen, if we get a good offer for what we're asking, we'll possibly sell it. That doesn't necessarily mean they are going to sell it. They're just putting it out there. Great example. One of my friends, he put his house on the market for $2.5 million. It's not a $2.5 million house. Okay? At all. He just doesn't want to sell it. So here in the neighborhood, people knock on your door and they say, we'll do an all cash buyout. I'll sell your house in a week. I got someone that wants it. Do you want to sell it? It's all cash. No mortgage, nothing. Easy transaction. He's like, you know what? $2.5 million. He's never going to sell this thing, but he doesn't. It's on the market. He's never going to sell it at that, but it's there. Another one. Here's another question. Would Samsung be interested? I think, again, antitrust issues, right?
Yeah, Samsung is in the same position as Huawei. Like, sure, you could make a case for Samsung.
Yeah,
Samsung is another company, by the way. They license the ARM design. They make their own chips. Those chips have not been doing well. So I guess like the last generation version of them did not match up well against the equivalent Qualcomm chip. So if you are familiar with their flagship phones, when you buy those in the United States, they come with Qualcomm chips. But when you buy them in other countries, they often come with I'm forgetting the name. Exynos, I think, is whatever the Samsung brand is. This past year, when they did the S20, they actually sold their flagships in their own country in South Korea with Qualcomm chips. And there was actually like a heated exchange with their board of directors, like, why are we doing this? And literally it was like, our own designs aren't good enough. And they didn't want people in their home market to suffer. And the question was, well, why are we making these chips then? What are we doing? So anyway, there's a little drama there with Samsung, but they are one of the licensees. And yeah, they would fall into that category too, for sure. And they're one of a few companies that might want them and could afford to buy them. Yeah.
So here's a question for you. By the way, guys, I want to remind everybody, if you enjoy the show that we do each and every week, you can go to our Patreon, patreon.com/whatthetech, and fund us there as little as $1 per episode. Helps us along the way. It's a great case of encouragement for us to keep going and, put a couple bucks in our pocket while we do the show. I think we're approaching 10 years now of doing this. And I'm a 36-year-old man with a man bun now. I'm having an identity crisis at this point in my life.
Yeah, you're not evolving in the right direction.
I have not. I'm going backwards, Paul.
I posted an old picture of you today.
Yeah. Did you?
Yes, I did.
What did you find? Where was it? Let's see. On Twitter?
It's in my Lumia 1020 article.
Oh, let's see. Hold on. Let's
go on the day that I went to that product launch, I met you and Mary Jo and Greg Sullivan at Rattle and Hum.
I don't remember this day.
It was July 2013.
Let's see. Let's see how bloated I am.
No, you're not bloated.
Let's see. Oh, I am. No, I'm not. I remember this day, actually. Yes, now I remember this day. Wasn't there an Apple event also happening this day, or no?
I don't remember that, but it was just the Lumia 1020. That was one with the big camera.
Yeah, I like that you just wrote Andrew.
Everyone knows you.
Yeah, this camera was actually pretty impressive for the time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I look at the pictures now and I think, well, these are the type of pictures I expect to get now from smartphones. These are not the pictures you got from smartphones back then.
No, not at all. Not at all.
You can zoom in on a bug and see all the little hairs on its leg. I mean, that was a big deal in 2013.
I think people forget that bulge that phone had.
Yeah.
It almost looked like an actual camera. That was kind of the point of this.
Yeah, I mean, there was a camera grip add-on you could get that added battery, but it also gave it that kind of hold, the place you could hold it. That made it look like a camera.
But it wasn't, even without that, it was still bulging on that side, right?
Well, it had the camera bump bulge. So it wasn't. I mean, the camera bump was kind of big as a circle, but as far as like the amount it came out, it wasn't that big. But it was a source of derision for people who didn't like it. But I whatever. I mean, the thing was it was just such a fantastic.
It feels like it was so long ago, but it wasn't.
I know. A million years ago.
I mean, you're talking about 7 years ago. This was a 41 megapixel camera.
I know.
Very impressive. Very impressive. Yep. And right now, what's the? I mean, I know that. Listen, megapixels really don't matter as much. Now it's a different race now. The sensor size matters.
Pixel binning is a big thing now, right? So sometimes when you see high megapixel counts, they're actually binning like Samsung does that. They combine the pixels to try to get a better picture. iPhone does that to some degree, but yeah, the actual megapixel count of the resulting photos is not as high. It's 12, 15, 21, something, whatever, depending on the camera. But we also have things that this thing didn't have, like optical zoom on most cameras now, and the performance, because there are special chipsets for the cameras. One of the problems with this thing was it was probably a dual core, whatever the current Snapdragon was at the time, and not particularly powerful chip, but it powered everything. So all of the what we now would call computational photography was all going through that one chipset, and it was doing everything. And my God, you could wait for that thing to take a photo. It was really slow, but the quality was there. It still is. I took a couple of pictures with it. If it was sunny out, I'd go for next time I go for a walk and it's sunny out, I'll take it and take some photos with it. It's still takes great pictures.
I have a question for you. What do you think currently? What do you think is the worst out of like the flagship phones that you've used and modern, this current generation? What do you think is the worst camera on the flagship?
That's a tough one because honestly, most of the cameras are at least pretty good, right? I'd have to say the one that's least desirable to me is probably on the OnePlus phones,
Hmm.
which sucks because I really like those phones. Otherwise, if the camera was just a step up, I would be all over one. I love OnePlus phones. I love them. After that, I mean, and again, we're talking about a narrow band here. This is not like cameras are all over the map and it's way far down on the list. But I mean, they're all right. They're all really close. With that understanding, I would say the next least desirable one to me is actually the iPhone.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And but again, I got to qualify that because the iPhone camera is great. It's just when I compare it to what you can do with like a Samsung, a modern Samsung, which would be the next one up, a Google Pixel, whatever, which would be the next one up, or a Huawei, which would be at the top. Of those, it is the least good.
Well, the P40 is the best camera on the market.
Yeah, I don't have that one, but I have a P30 Pro, and it's
P30. It's right up there.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's the best one I have. I mean, by far.
Yeah.
It's not even.
If you're
close.
looking at on the ExoMark, if you go on there, you will not find the iPhone in the top 10.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I know there's some controversy with those guys, but I feel like they know what they're talking about. I don't always agree with their tests or their results or whatever, but yeah,
really big on the Huawei. I'll tell you that the Huawei P40, the Honor 30 Pro, Oppo, Find X.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. They are literally fantastic.
Yeah, Xiaomi, more Huawei, more Honor. Then the Galaxy
go back.
S20 Ultra.
Look at the pictures I took last May. I did Zoom tests while we were in Miami, and like the Huawei was in a different league than the other cameras. Like it was like alien technology. It's amazing.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. So I have a question for the audience. I'm going to encourage you guys to tweet me the response at Andrew Zarian. So right now, I'm in the process. I got to put together a new production machine. This one I got to send it to Suncast, and I need something a little bit beefier in the studio. And I kind of have an idea what I want to build in my budget, but here's the big problem I have right now. What the hell do I do? Do I build a Intel machine or do I build an AMD machine? Right. I don't know what to do.
For the type of thing that you're doing, do you require a dedicated graphics card?
Yes. So I'm going to go with I already have the higher end NVIDIA's sitting in a box right now. I think it's a 2160, I think. NVIDIA RTX, whatever their new ones are. TX.
So, but is that central? In other words, this is for some kind of video rendering?
Yeah, for the production machine. Yeah.
But I mean, for that purpose, the GPU is the important thing, right?
The GPU is very important. Yeah, the GPU is important. But obviously, I have a 5th gen Intel right now. I have a 5th gen i7 running this thing. And I'm only at 30% CPU resource. I mean, it's shocking how the longevity of this has gone with
that's crazy.
With just swapping out a GPU. I think it's what is it? The 5 something, 50 whatever, 5080, whatever. I forgot the model, but it's a 5th gen.
Is it like a high performance like HP chip or a U series chip, or what's the K? And K back then was probably that's the overclock one, right?
Yeah.
The one you can overclock.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now. Let's see. Let's open this. Let's do this on the fly because I should know this because I just read it to Suncast what this chip was, and it's going to crash Windows, and I don't want to touch it now.
Yeah.
My Explorer.
Okay, but whatever. So I don't. If the graphics card is the most important thing, I don't think I would just shop on price. I don't think it matters.
See, I don't know. I don't know what to do. 5820. It's an i7 5820, which is pretty old.
It's really old.
Very old. It's 5 years old.
Pre-Silverlight. You're actually going to run into support issues with that with Windows 10. Like you might not be able to
really
even upgrade to newer versions.
You're kidding me. When did they? I did not know that.
It started with actually I think it was Skylake. Because of the problems with Skylake, Microsoft basically said they weren't going to support older versions with new versions of Windows 10, and then because they wanted Intel to fix all the problems, and Intel kind of came back and said, "Yeah, that's not how this works," and they kind of went back and forth. But I don't know if they've rescinded that or whatever. But they drew the line at that time on, I think the term they were using was like modern silicon or something. Anyway, I don't know what the actual support deal is, but at some point, probably pretty soon, you're with that chip, you're probably going to start running into problems.
Yeah, I'm trying to see what the support is for this.
Yeah, let me see if I can find
This is before Skylake. You know, Skylake I think was a 6th gen, right?
That's what I mean. Yeah.
I think so, because I skipped Skylake because of the issues. And I think I was on the phone with you and you told me it's go with the 5th gen and not the 6th gen because of all the issues.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's what happened.
Let me see if I can find this here. Actually, they did extend.
Regardless, I mean, this was a great chipset, and the performance bump between the 5th and the 6th wasn't. And I didn't even do it for the price; I just did it for the issues.
So when you think about Intel and the way they develop chipsets, it's changed over time. But they used to do like major, minor,
yeah.
And then they switched. They have a different thing. I think. I believe like all the chips they have ever since 6th gen have basically been based on this. They're basically just derivatives of Skylake. I think they've stuck with that architecture. Like, I can't find this thing. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. So I don't know. I'm gonna put it out there, and I'm gonna make you guys determine what the hell I do. You know, AMD's kicking some butt right now, so I have no problem going over. Just how much better is it than Intel right now at this very moment? And then am I going to run into some support issues with the software I'm running? You know what I mean? Like, that's part of the issue. They're saying no, they're not. They're recommending AMD at this point. So I just want to, I'm putting it out there, and I'm going to let the audience kind of give me some feedback on this, because I can't really get a straight answer. The only thing I'm hearing is that you know, AMD is much cheaper than the Intel chips, and you're getting, if not the same, maybe a little bit better performance. So that's the argument. But I'm fine with that. I don't, you know, I just want to get something that's going to last me another 5 years, because I went a long way, this computer.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It is crazy, that's considering what we do. And we've upped the quality of the shows, you know?
Yeah.
You know, so we're going to be doing that, obviously. I was listening to Windows Weekly, and Mary Jo was talking about a new roadmap for Windows.
Right.
Do you want to go in that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a three-pronged deal, because for the general roadmap is that today Microsoft ships supposedly 2 major feature updates every year. Before 2019, they literally did ship 2 major feature updates every year. Starting last year, and then they're doing it again this year, they're actually only shipping 1 feature update, which is a major release, like a major upgrade. And then they do a smaller release 6 months later that they call a feature update. So it makes it sound like it's important, but it's just what we call a cumulative update, which is just a normal, like the monthly updates you get. It's bug and security fixes. And what that means is when you reboot to install it, it doesn't sit out there for 20 minutes installing some major new version of Windows. It actually just installs a couple of updates and comes back. It's quick. And that's good. So 2019, 2020, the first major release of each of those years was a freaking nightmare. The second release they did last year, and hopefully the second release they did this year, have worked out better. But what she's saying, what her sources are telling her, is that they're just going to formally switch that to a once-a-year schedule. And they're going to divide the engineering between 2 platforms. So there's Windows 10 as we know it today, which is like Windows 10 desktop, and then this new Windows 10X system. And
which is delayed.
Which is delayed, right? So, and Windows 10X is the second of those 3 prongs, right? So, I don't. Let's see if I can think about this. I don't remember which is which, but under the plan, like, you know, Windows 10 desktop there'd be 1 version each year. I think that one, I don't want to say, it was either the first or second half of the year, I don't remember. And then Windows 10X would be the other one, right? So they would ship that either first or second half, whatever.
Yeah.
So Windows 10X was originally supposed to come out this year, only in new devices. Surface Neo was the only one we had ever heard of. A couple of months ago, maybe March, which is actually more than a couple of months ago, all of a sudden, Microsoft delayed Neo and delayed Windows 10X. And we heard from our own sources that there were many, many problems with the core part of the operating system, which is sometimes called Windows 10 Core or Windows Core. But with Windows 10X in particular, it has this new container architecture, right? So everything's in containers. And for legacy backward compatibility with Win32 apps, there's a single Win32 container where all those apps run in that container.
Yeah.
And that container has big problems with compatibility and big problems with performance, which,
This is something that we had questioned.
Because like those are the two things that have to work, right?
So it's doing both. It's doing hardware emulation and software emulation, correct? When you're in the container.
I would say that it is doing. Let's see, is it doing hardware emulation? It is at least doing software. Is it emulation? Yeah, I guess it is technically.
I guess technically.
They would probably call it something different.
I'm sure. I'm sure they're not going to use code.
They would call it like code translation or something. The idea here is that you want to protect the rest of the system from code that could be errant, right? Meaning either outright malicious or just poorly written, or old. It's just old. It's just something that doesn't respect the battery life of a laptop because it was written for desktop computers in the 1990s, maybe. Something that is insecure, potentially something that is unreliable, whatever it is.
Here's my issue with this. Mm-hmm. We're back to square one. They've delayed this. Yeah. They've delayed this to 2021. It's not going to launch with Win32 app support. That's now delayed 2022, the earliest. So now you have something that somewhat looks like Windows, but yet does not run Windows apps. Kind of sounds like something they did a couple years ago that did not really work well for them.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of some things they did that didn't work very well. Windows RT was one of them. Windows 10 Mode was one of them. Windows 10 on ARM was another one of them. So yes, not running Win32 apps is going to be a problem. So it looks a little different from Windows. That might help.
Let me ask you this. Windows RT, Windows 10s, has this always been the issue for them? Because now I'm starting to think, maybe the plan, I can't remember back then, but if there was ever a plan for Windows RT to support Win32 apps at any point. I remember there were rumors of it, but has this always been the case from day one where they're having a real hard time doing this container? Because
the container thing, the container deal is a new approach, right? So the problem has been around for a long time. The problem is that the thing we call Windows and what people think of when they think of Windows, whether they think they're thinking this or not. I mean, what they're ultimately thinking is, this thing is going to run those apps I always need. And they think, you have all the classics that people know about Microsoft Office, obviously, Internet Explorer back in the day when that was a thing. But, most people have never probably heard the term Win32. And just that name itself is confusing because it's actually 64-bit now. It's not even 32-bit only anymore. It's 32 and 64-bit, whatever. But the point of it is, this is the original Windows. Well, it's literally not the original, but this is the 32-bit plus architecture of Windows that dates back to 1993. It's almost 20 years old. And when Windows was the biggest thing in the world in the 1990s and into the 2000s, this was the way that developers wrote software. So all of the software that people actually run on Windows for the most part is a desktop application, is what we call a Win32 application. But Microsoft knows, look, this thing it's not secure, it's not reliable, causes major problems with battery life. If you look at mobile platforms, there's like iOS or Android and the stuff they've been trying to build into Windows, there are advantages to those systems that they want for Windows, and app developers, all things being equal, would want them as well. And I'll just gloss it over, but I mean, it's like you have apps that are modern, can go into a background state when they're not being used, and not take up a lot of resources. And as RAM is going out to other things, they could actually shut down or tombstone or whatever they call it in the background and sit there in kind of a comatose state, taking up almost no resources at all. And then when the person switches back to it, it just springs back to life. And it's like a modern thing. It's just a more modern way of doing it. But Win32 apps can't do that, among other things. I mean, it's like the Wild West. So how do you transition from a world where every app that everyone needs is this old-fashioned thing, but you want the platform to be modern and do this modern stuff? And they've never done it successfully. So Windows RT was the first attempt. It's important to note, Windows RT ran on ARM, not the same ARM we have today, but it was a 32-bit version of ARM, NVIDIA ARM, I think. If I'm not mistaken, Tegra, I think. Anyway, whatever it was. Win32 was in there, like it was, but because Win32 is part of Windows, like they did a translation to make it work on that chipset. So all of the applications that come with Windows, like Notepad and WordPad and Paint and all that, were all in there.
Yeah.
The problem was you couldn't download apps from the worldwide, the web, because you can't guarantee anything about them, and the performance would have been terrible because it would have to translate it on the fly and whatever. Just will this work? No, the answer was no. It didn't work. Windows 10s, same thing. It's Win32 that ran on Intel at least, so full speed app compat, whatever. But you tried to download Chrome, you tried to download iTunes, couldn't do it. But you could turn it off, and when you turned it off, it was just normal Windows 10, and it worked fine. Except that now it's normal Windows 10, and you have all those same problems you could have, blah blah blah, whatever. I still to this day think that my idea for Windows 10s is the best thing they could do, which is this: you're running in S mode, which means the system is protecting itself against all the awful Win32 stuff out in the world. But you have an HP all-in-one printer. It does scanning and faxing and all this stuff, and it's got a special driver. And you go to install it, and it says, "Oh, you can't do this because you're in S mode." And you say, "Yeah, I want to." So whitelist is a word we can't use anymore. I want to okay that I am I'm the owner. I own this thing.
Yeah,
this is what I want. You run in S mode for everything except for this thing. Let me run the HP thing or whatever. Or I want to download Google Chrome. It's the most popular web browser in the world. It's a Win32 app. Let me run Google Chrome. The rest of you can be in S mode, right? This is the compromise I'm going to make for myself as the owner.
I don't want it to be in S
mode. They just don't do that. So the container approach is a new way to do it. It's a curious architecture. Like I always kind of imagined like a containerized version of Windows would basically be each application would be running in its own container. I guess that's top heavy, especially for Win32 apps. So they're going to do like a single container for Win32. And if you're familiar, this is not technically the same, but conceptually, when Apple transitioned from classic Mac OS to Mac OS 10, you could run legacy Mac OS apps in an environment called, I forget the name. They had Carbon and the other one. It was the other one, whatever the other one. Carbon was native apps. So that's how that worked. Those things were all running in a classic Mac OS emulator, for lack of a better term. If one app went south, it could bring the whole thing down. But whatever, at least the apps worked. And to most users, they probably didn't notice anything other than it was a little slow. And then over time, people upgraded their apps and we stopped needing it. And then eventually Apple took it out of the system. So that is how it could work when 10X works. But we won't see the Win32 container at least until, like you said, 2022 maybe. And I don't know what happens to that system in the short term, because why would anyone want this thing?
Yeah.
It runs the apps that come with it. It runs store apps, of which there are only a few of any good quality. And it runs web apps, right? So it will run, Edge, and you can do PWAs or whatever web apps. I know a lot of people in enthusiast circles say that's enough. Like that should be enough for most people. But I always go back to that same thing, which is like everybody has that one app, and that's the problem. That's where these other things fail.
And that's the complaint you're going to see, is that one app.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So I think the plan for the short term is we're only going to sell this thing on special new devices. They're going to be thin and light tablet type things. It's not going to look like Windows, so maybe people won't be freaking out.
It's its own thing.
But then again, how do you sell them something like that? It's like, here's the thing. It's sort of like Chrome OS.
Well, here's the thing. Are you going to sell tablets?
We don't know.
Yeah, but that I think that's going to play a big part in this, because first of all, how less like Windows is it going to look? I think that's fine now. The argument of having it look totally separate, not as much there, because iOS has kind of blurred the line with Mac OS. Obviously, when you sit in front of it, you know what you're in front of, but the line is blurred more. So for Microsoft,
those things look beautiful. Like,
they look beautiful. Yeah.
iOS and Mac OS are gorgeous.
And nobody's complaining that they can't run their Mac OS apps on iOS.
No, that's true.
But
they're beautiful. They're beautiful to look at. So when you look at like Win 10X the way it looks today, it's like, it's like Windows 10 is fine. Windows 10 looks fine. But Windows 10X as something that's like a differentiated, It looks kind of amateurish. I mean,
You know
it
what does
doesn't.
not exist in the Mac world?
No.
The request to make Mac OS look like the old versions.
Yeah,
Right?
right.
You want to see
Stardock utility that. Yeah.
the line in the sand between Windows users and Mac users. Mac users don't want to look. They don't want their operating system looking like Tiger. Nobody's asking for that. But however, on the Microsoft side, we spoke about this last week. How many different ways can you make your computer look like Windows Vista and Windows XP?
Oh my God. And people still, every day in my comments, there's people like, oh, well, Windows Vista was the best looking version ever. Windows 7 is the best. Like, people still like this old, like, I don't know why. Like, why did they, so it was like, what was it called? When they did Windows XP, there was briefly the UI was something called Watercolor.
Okay.
Or, yeah, Watercolor was one. And then what was the other one? It doesn't matter. Anyway, before they switched to the Luna UI, they had this thing that kind of just looked like Windows 2000, but slightly better. And people were like, they should have kept that. That was the best one. It's like,
what was it called? Like Watercolor?
Watercolor was one of them. And then there was another one. What was the Whistler? Well, Whistler was the codename for Windows XP. Maybe it's just Watercolor.
Here you go. As of 2019, how to install the Watercolor theme on Windows XP.
Oh,
tutorial.
Sure. Yeah, make it look like this old piece of crap. Yeah, it was Watercolor.
Yeah.
I don't know. People get so locked up in the past.
Listen, I get it. You know what? You know why they do it? Because you can. That's why people want to do it. Because you can. You could make it look.
And by the way, that is the beauty of an open platform.
Listen,
like Windows.
Who doesn't like classic Windows 1.0?
Anyone who's used it, I would say. It's terrible.
I stole that one from the chat room. Curtis, thank you for that one. He loaned his mind to me for that one. I don't know. We'll see. But it's time to wrap it up, Paul. Nice quick show today. Nice quick show. I have a war happening outside of my door. Apparently, my kids got a hold of a megaphone, and they're singing. They're singing everything you can imagine right now.
Yeah, they know you're working and whatnot.
They know, yeah, and I've messaged anybody that's looking after them, all the adults that are out there. Can you please take the microphone away from them? I've heard no such thing happen yet. So
it's like doing a YouTube takedown request. No one's paying attention.
Curtis says in the chat room, actually, Paul may want an Amiga workbench look.
So, by the way, there's an app called Startup Curtains that does what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It has the Amiga workbench. That's one of them. And I actually don't like it because it emulates that kind of jaggedy font you had back then before we had anti-alias fonts. I like the color scheme and I like the general look of it, but it's the font that kills it for me. So I looked at it. I could see doing that. I'm running it right now. I'm using the Windows XP theme.
Yeah. I got to install it on this HP. I downloaded it. I have yet to install it. So I want to play with all the themes. Listen, some things never change. We're still doing this nonsense theme thing with Windows since I mean Windows 95. People have been altering the theme.
Yeah, it's
interesting. Listen, that's the best thing. That's a great thing. That's why people enjoy Linux. You could have a kernel for any of your needs. Specific distro for whatever you need.
Right. There is pretty much a Linux distribution for every person on Earth that wants to use Linux.
I think it's a 1-to-1 ratio at this point.
Yeah, it literally is. Yeah.
There's billions of different distros to make it look. So it's interesting.
All
right, guys. Wrapping it up for today. Listen, send me your tweets. Let me know what I should buy, what I should build. Should I go with AMD? Should I go with Intel for this computer?
It's a tough question to ask people though, because you're gonna hear from the people who are
tell
enthusiasts for either one.
I have a couple of issues here. Number one, also the motherboard makes a big difference for me because I have these. I don't know if you've seen this, Paul. This is an AJA Kona 4 capture card. It's a 4-input SDI capture card. There you go.
Yeah, nice.
I need this thing to work flawlessly. So you need to have enough bandwidth on these PCIe ports.
Is this the thing you put in that machine I had in my cellar?
No, I put a Blackmagic in there.
Okay.
Yeah, this one has 4 inputs. Yours has 1. But you know what's wild? The chip that you have in there, that Blackmagic card, I think it's the 4K. So you could technically do 4K video. However, it's like obsolete at this point. You don't even need to open up the thing.
I mean,
now everything is USB based. These USB capture cards, unbelievable.
Right.
I mean, if you want 1080 60,
that thing that's in my cellar, that is probably a 4th or 5th gen Intel chip, I bet, or even a 3rd gen. It's an
No,
old one.
no, that has to
You
be
don't think
newer.
so?
I think it's newer.
Oh, I don't know. I'm going to break it out soon because I've been cleaning up the cellar, but it's an older one. I have to look it up. I'm not sure.
Did you buy it or you built it?
No, I bought that one. This was was it a gaming? It wasn't a gaming PC, but it was like an H series processor, it was kind of a high end.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting the brand now. It might have been pre-Omen, but it was like, God, what was it called? It might just be a Pavilion, but it was like a high end one. It was like a performance series.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't know, for the day. I don't remember exactly,
but either way, listen, just get a US get. I gotta send you one of the USB ones, the USB capture cards, and you could just use your camera now. You don't have to use a webcam ever again.
I know, that's what I should be. I'll use can I use my Nokia Lumia 1020?
You know what you can do now? You know what you can do? Use your iPhone as your webcam, because we spoke about that app yesterday. That thing works flawlessly. It's unbelievable how good the video looks. The software's on the Mac. I'm curious. Actually, I'm not positive. I'm not positive there's a Windows version, but I should look into it. But I was so impressed by how good it looked. Very impressed. Anyway, let's wrap it up, guys. Go to our website, gfknetwork.com. Subscribe to us. We're everywhere podcasts are available. Also, our video will be available on Spotify starting soon. I just submitted all the videos to GFQ to Spotify. So we'll have all our videos there if you want to watch the video there. It's also on YouTube and on iTunes and everywhere podcasts are available. And, of course, our website on Thurrott.com and on gfknetwork.com. You can follow me at Andrew Zarian. You can follow Paul at Thurrott. Do people still call you Thoreau?
Yeah, that's a common.
I feel like it was more common before.
Because people have heard it. I mean, people can't pronounce or spell my name, but it's okay.
It's 5 T's and 6 R's, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
And a 7.
7, sorry. All right, guys, that's it for this week. We'll see you all later. Take care. All right. You want to do a quick what the talk, or you got to run?
I don't care.
Okay, let's do it. All right, let's do it. All right, I'm gonna hit record. Stop that, and I'm gonna hit record now. In 3, 2, and 1. Hey, everybody, welcome to What the Talk. This is our bonus show. We record this live each and every week exclusively on patreon.com/whatthetalk. I'm Andrew Zarian. Of course, I'm joined by Paul Thoreau.
Thank you, Mr. Blazarian.
Yeah, Blazarian. You know what I get all the time? Zarian. Andrew Zarian.
You're like the villain from that James Bond movie, View to a Kill.
I'm the villain in every movie. Yeah. Just put a different outfit on me. I'm
No, but I think the villain's name was Zoran or something, or
yeah.
Zoran Industries. It was
no, wasn't it?
Christopher Walken.
What was it? Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I'm ethnically ambiguous.
Yes.
So I could be every foreign villain from the 80s in every movie. You want a Middle Eastern guy? Here you go. You want a Greek guy? Here you go. You want an Italian? Here you go. You want a South American that you don't know? They could be Colombian. They could be Ecuadorian. Sure. Here I am. I'll play the role.
We're looking for someone in kind of a B-level terrorist role.
Yeah, that's what I fill in for really well. Really well. Especially with the man bun now. I could be a drug dealer. Yep. My wife yesterday told me. So I went out to go meet a friend. I'm wearing a pair of retro Jordans. I got my skinny jeans on and a t-shirt. And I have my hair in a bun. And my wife goes, I'm going to stop you right there. She goes, you look like a middle school drug dealer. You're 36 years old. What is happening?
Right.
I'm like, and I looked at
myself. Did you get on your pizza bike delivery thing and head off into the sunset?
No, I just stand in front of middle school parks.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I do now. I just stare at the kids uncomfortably. Right. Ethically ambiguous or ethnically ambiguous? Both.
Right.
Both. That's fine.
Man.
Yeah.
Taylor Negron, the drug dealer guy from Fast Times at Ridgemont
High.
That
guy. That's my.
You gonna help me score Van Halen tickets?
So you know what's interesting? I'm charging up my iPads right now to install iOS 14 on there, and normally I would be on the beta of macOS, because I always have, I have two computers. So one I always do the beta, and we could talk about it. My computer's locked in my office in Manhattan, and my building is still not open.
You can't even.
We're in phase 4. We're in phase 4 right now.
How many phases are there, Andrew?
I believe infinity. If you ask the city, because they're not. Right. So New York City entered phase 4. Long Island has been in phase 4 for weeks now. Indoor dining is happening. 50% occupancy. Numbers have not gone up. Right? With indoor dining, the entire state is doing indoor dining except for the city. Numbers have not gone up. Sitting where they are. Good thing.
Yep.
New York City, we have we're in phase 4. I believe this is the last phase. There's no more phases. There's no phase 5. Restaurants are not open. They delayed the indoor dining.
Yeah.
I don't.
We actually went back on indoor dining, so we were at 50%. They put it down to 25%.
Yeah. I guess they saw something they didn't like. So I'm hoping in 2 more weeks. In 2 more weeks, they realize that, okay, you know what? We've had over a month of indoor dining in New York, and we have yet to see.
That's not how it's going to go, Andrew.
I know.
Unfortunately, there's huge chunks of the rest of the country trending in the exact opposite direction, and those people are going to visit New York.
Yeah, and that's a problem.
Because they hear the restaurants are open. So,
well, listen, but the restaurants are open in New York. I think a lot of people are. Listen, Long Island is not Manhattan, but it's close enough. I could go 5 minutes east and walk into a restaurant, sit there, and eat and be fine.
Right.
However, in my town, you can't do it. We're gonna see what happens. I'm getting very antsy.
I'm not going to go in a restaurant. I can tell you that. We go to a restaurant and we eat outside. Yeah. But
I went in Long Island. I went to Tripolini's in Long Island.
Yeah.
Sat inside. Nobody was inside. It was the best indoor dining experience I've ever had.
Yeah. Okay.
I sat inside. Nobody was in there because everybody's outside. Had a nice meal.
Dude, we're like you guys. This particular restaurant is like we used to sit at the bar.
Yeah. I know you're a big bar sitter. Yeah,
and this is an activity I'm not going to be doing for a while. It's just that's not safe.
I'm not as paranoid about getting the virus. Right, my thing is I give it to somebody that's
it's not just you.
Has a compromised immune system.
You could be a super carrier. In fact, with your ethnic vagrancies here. You probably are a super carrier. Look at you.
Look at me.
It's probably you probably
sprinkle it everywhere.
It's like when my wife used to drive her turbo diesel down the street and kill trees. Like you walk down the street and you're just throwing off coronavirus.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I could have sworn I had this in March. I still don't believe that I really tested negative. I had all the symptoms in March.
Sure.
Every symptom. Everybody thought I had it. The doctor's like, oh, you probably have it. And I didn't. Yep. I tested negative for the antibody. I tested negative for the virus. So I didn't have it. But, what I'm wondering as a New Yorker, right? One thing I cannot see myself doing. Listen, I'm not as concerned as maybe I should be, right? And I admit that. And I go out and I go to the bars and I'm, obviously I wear my mask if I have to. I follow the rules. I'm not going into a restaurant screaming "F you." I'm not going to not put on a mask.
Right.
But if for the 3 seconds it takes me to walk up the stairs to go to this rooftop that I've been going to and drinking outdoors, I'll put on the freaking mask. It's fine. However, you know what I cannot see myself doing that I did every single day, going to Manhattan every single day? That rush hour train ride.
Yeah,
Paul,
right.
You've been on the subway during rush hour, and you've seen how bad it could get. Where you are on top of everybody. Go to Manhattan, okay? I want you to envision this: taking the E train to Penn Station from Midtown. You're going to Penn Station, right? It's 5:30 in the afternoon, in the evening. That door opens. There's only room to squeeze in and stand like this. You're hanging on for dear life. You know what's happening next to you?
Literally.
The woman with no mask on, the lady with no mask on, is sneezing all over the place. Exactly. I know. The guy that just got off his construction job is coughing all over the place on top of you. How are they going to prevent this? It's impossible.
I know.
It's impossible. And
I'm not telling you. Even for me, dude, like Since we moved to Pennsylvania, I've gone through all these things about ways to get into New York, and at first it was great because there was this bus system that had frequent routes, and it was excellent. And then they went out of business, and then the bus went from horrible to worse. And I'm like, I have to figure out something different, So in February, one time I went to New York. I drove my car to Liberty Newark Airport, and I took what's it called, the Rhode Island, sorry,
Long Island,
the New Jersey
Transit
in, and that was fine, but it was a subway. It's less than 30 minutes into the city, and I thought, I've done it. I figured it out.
I did it.
I finally figured out a way. And of course, I've not been to New York since. No, but now my plan is hinging on a subway. And I'm like, when I come in, I'm going to come in on the morning rush hour, and I stay with you guys. We hang out. We go to the bar, like the picture we just looked at. Yeah, and I leave at rush hour like a jerk. I'm going to be like, I don't know. I don't know.
So I was thinking about the last day that I was in the city. I went one day to the office. I went just once because I had to do something in May. I had to go and get some paperwork. But the last day that I think that it was the day before. It was that Monday, right? It was the day before St. Patrick's Day that they shut everything down on that Tuesday. So that Monday or whatever it was, I forgot what day it fell on. Whatever. The day before St. Patrick's Day, I was in my office, and that's when they announced, okay, we're shutting down this, we're shutting down that, restaurants are shutting down by 8 p.m. tonight, and it was a mass exodus out of the city. Everybody was excited to leave because they thought they're going to get a 2-week vacation or a month vacation. This is going to be great, paid leave for a month, awesome. That train ride home, I could not believe how people were just spitting on each other. I mean, there's a pandemic. We should be concerned. We're shutting down the whole free world. Go home, guys. People would say, you know what? Maybe I should be a little bit more cautious. Nah, people are coughing and sneezing. There was a man with no shoes on the train. I'll never forget it. He was wearing no shoes, and he had a mask on. I'm like, well, we're in New York. It's March. Of course you have no shoes on and a mask.
Our version of that was Pennsylvania immediately shut down all the state liquor stores. Said they were going to shut them down.
Worst thing to do.
So we went there on the last day. We stood in the line, 40 people deep. It went around the store and outside. And as I observed to my wife at the time, I was like, this is how we're going to get the frickin' coronavirus. Yeah, this
is how you get it. Waiting online for liquor.
They had just left the store open and said nothing. I have never been in that store with more than 10 people at one time, ever. Yeah. Like if they had just left it alone, it would have been fine. And by the way, today they're open. They're fine.
Yeah, it's the same as the toilet paper thing. People freaked out because it was a news report.
No, Andrew, it's worse than toilet paper. I can live without toilet paper. Okay,
I can't live without booze.
Let's be serious.
Actually, talking about booze, I'm gonna go. My buddy Coco is here for his 40th birthday. We're gonna have cake and everything. So he's nice. Outside with the kids, causing that mess right now. Okay. Yeah, That's what I figured out. So it's just, I don't know, man. I'm very excited to get back to some sort of normalcy. I think the indoor dining doing 25% in New York City. I think that's going to be sooner than later. I'm hopeful. Yeah. I sit on a New York hospitality, not a board, but a group, and the word coming down is they're planning on something. But I got to tell you, I had to lay off even more people.
Sure, I'm
down to nobody, just me at this point. And if we don't open, my days are numbered. So I'm hoping that we open something. I have a very complicated job. So I think a lot of people don't realize how complicated my job really is in real life. But, it is what it is. I just can't see going back to the subway and how it functions as of, prior to this.
Then the people have to get in and out somehow.
I don't know how. I don't think that's my point. I don't think there's there's a problem. There will be a problem. Yeah. And I'm not even talking about mortality. I'm talking about just infection, right? More people getting it, the worse it is, because then it's not good. How they're going to prevent this from happening it's impossible.
Mandatory mask usage would be part of it. And then there'll be
a certain... happen, though? You know what's going to happen? You're touching that mask to take it off. People don't unhook it the way that this, technically... With a mask, you're supposed to take your pinky, take the latch, and unhook it that way. You know what I'm seeing all day? People are just touching it, pulling it down, putting it off, You're still touching the surface.
Sure.
Nobody's spitting in your face. You're still touching the mask. The biggest problem is going to be to learn not to touch your face. Let it be.
Yeah. Sure. But, I mean, what are you going to do? You just have.
What are you going to do?
This is the system.
We need a new plan. I need a bubble suit. That's what we need. It's the only way. You think there's going to be social distancing on the train? What's going to happen when somebody screams? I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. 6 o'clock rush hour, Paul. 6 o'clock rush hour. It's packed. The subway's packed. Some guy is going to turn around and say, excuse me, social distance. And you know what that other guy's going to say? Fuck you. And knock him out. Welcome to New York.
Sure.
I've seen arguments. I've seen fights over nothing. Over somebody touching somebody's jacket. This is an insane city. People don't think normally, especially in the height of stress. You're going to have some guy starting to cough and sneeze on the entire train just to mess with somebody. Some guy's going to punch somebody. This is going to get out of hand. Just telling you. I could see it. See it. Unless, miraculously, the vaccine comes and this all goes away, which I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, not anytime soon. But,
they say
eventually. Yeah, we'll see.
We just locked in $100 million. We just gave Pfizer $2 billion.
Spray from the sky because we're also going to be dealing with the idiots. The same idiots that won't wear masks. They're going to be the ones who don't believe in vaccinations.
It's going to be like West Nile. Just spray everything. That's it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're going to have to.
All right, guys.
How come there's all these contrails?
Yeah. Where are all these chemtrails coming from?
Yeah.
All right, guys. That's it for this week. Thank you. Goodbye. That was nice. That was fun. Nice and quick. All right. I'm going to take a photo of me, and then I'm going to get out of here. I got to... You can take the mask off with the elastic without touching the outside of the mask. That's how you're supposed to do it, but nobody does that. Everybody's touching their face and then saying, like, oh, I don't want to... You better wear a mask. Paul, you better wear a mask while I'm touching my face.
I'll be giving you a wet willy while you're doing it.
I'm waiting to see what I'm going to do.
Completely violating the entire point of being safe.
Are you wearing a mask? Here you go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, Paul. I'll see you later. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Let me get a screenshot here. Take this off. Want to do another one, John? Make sure you got the prettiest one. All right, boys and girls. Thank you very much. I'll see you all next week. Goodbye.